welcome to Soul Symbols. My name is Shelley. I'm a writer, an astrologer, and a card reader, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. Today is How to Tarot Tuesday, and what that is a series that I host here on my YouTube channel, where every Tuesday I pull a card from the 78 card tarot, starting with the Major Arcana. We go over a brief description of all the symbols in the card, and then after that I go ahead and lay out 3 different tarot decks. I pick the 3 tarot decks with the representation of the card that I think best matches the symbols, and then the watcher will go ahead and choose a deck, and I will go ahead and pull a spread for that deck, talking about how that card manifests in your life. If you ever want to jump straight to your reading, you are welcome to do so. The timestamps will always be posted in the description box below, as are the names and authors of all of the decks and the materials that I use. I want to first thank everyone for supporting my channel. I have a beloved 12 subscribers, and I'm so very grateful. And today we are on card, well, it's technically the 12th card, but it is number 11. It is card number 11, which is Justice. And I'm going to go ahead and get straight into the description. Justice is a good one. What it is that Justice is ruled by Libra, and I'm a sun sign Libra. And what it is Justice. If you look at the card, the Rider-Waite-Smith is the traditional representation of the Justice card, and what you see what looks like a regal person wearing robes and what looks like a very square crown. In one hand they're holding a sword, completely vertical. It's almost as if the sword is not wavering at all. And then in the other hand, equally, they're holding the scales of justice, and the scales are almost equally balanced. The person, with the way that their robes are designed, they look very much like a judge. And then with them, they have a lot of red in their robe and a lot of gold. In the background, you see a veil, which is very similar to the card number 2, which is the High Priestess. It almost looks like, there's a veil between 2 pillars, 2 columns. And so it really does kind of indicate that this is a barrier. This is kind of a threshold. It's the place that you go to be judged. Now you see the person is kind of sitting in between the 2 pillars, and they're not really sitting on a throne, but so they're not considered royalty. But beyond the veil, you see that there's definitely a lot of yellow and gold. So there's really kind of, all of the red kind of symbolizes action or passion. And then you can see on the face of the person is impartiality. This person's staring straight ahead, and they're not wavering. So the Justice card definitely has a very judge-like feel. And what we go with is, the typical, the most direct representation of the Judgment card is that of, balance. Anytime you have been in a situation where you feel like justice is needed, it usually means, legal situations. Sometimes it can mean, marriages, or, the judging or the balancing of legal matters. It could be it can be about judging a situation. Like there might be a situation that requires, fairness, where you need to be impartial, or you might need to really think hard about what is right and what is wrong. Similar to the Lovers, Justice does mean decision. It means weighing both sides of an issue, and it's also about balancing all the factors. It's really about seeing what action is based, which is warranted given the situation. Now, another card that I have that I picked from the decks, and later when we pull the decks, I'll give you the descriptions, but from the White Sage Tarot, I chose the Justice card that has this image. And what this is you see scales, which is the same as the Rider-Waite-Smith, but in one scale you have a feather, and in the other scale you have a human heart. And what this is this is an Egyptian kind of symbolism. It is also kind of true in Mayan culture. But what it was is that in ancient Egypt, what they believed is that when a person passed, if at the time of a person's death, what it would be is they would take someone's heart and they would weigh it against a feather. If the heart was lighter than a feather, then it means that it kind of was an indicator of living an honest life. It kind of meant that you were, if your heart was lighter than the feather, then you were free, or it earned you safe passage into the underworld. And it was actually, it's guarded by the goddess, the judge, or the person who weighed the heart was the goddess Maat. It's M-A-A-T. And I just thought that was a very interesting symbolism because, when you look at justice, it talks a lot about cause and effect. What it is it's kind of, it is a little bit karmic. There's quite a few karmic cards in the tarot, but with justice, it's just kind of in that theme, saying, okay, what you reap, you sow, right? Cause and effect. If you steal, like a lot of times in astrology, if you believe in reincarnation, there's kind of that theme of karma. Like, okay, if I steal bananas from your fruit stand, now, 100 years in the future when we reincarnate, you might, steal my bananas someday, but it'll be your karma, right? It's the balancing of the scales. It's saying, okay, what you did to me will eventually happen to you. And not to say that happens. I mean, it's depends on what you believe. But just like in justice, we want to believe that we live in a fair world, right? And sometimes we don't, sometimes you feel like, something happens to you and you really don't get the scales of justice balanced. But here, in a lifespan kind of, I liked the images, or the image of the heart and the feather really speaks to me because it speaks of accepting the results of what you created. It's like, seeing how you choose a situation. And that is a very justice theme. Because when you think about it, it's like, okay, if this were true, and you can think of it in a spiritual way too. If you take a Christian mindset, a lot of people feel like when you pass away, when you cross over to the afterlife, to heaven, that you might be judged. You might be judged. They might say, okay, what crimes have you done in this life? And did you make amends for those crimes in that lifetime? So that's kind of the theme with the heart and the feather. It's like, okay, what have you done? You see a lot of movies that talk about that, about confessing, about saying, okay, yes, there are things that I've done that I haven't made amends for. So when you see the Justice card, it definitely talks about that. It talks about, taking responsibility or recognizing the cause and effect of karma. If you lean on one scale, if you do not balance it, counterbalance it with positive action, then that scale, your heart might be heavier than a feather. You know what I mean? It's interesting, that symbolism and just how much that speaks of justice. It is in that, in that vein, it talks about settling old accounts or settling old debts. It's about being accountable and acknowledging the truth of your situation, because what you're saying is okay, I'm acknowledging the truth. Now, preemptively, it can also be about doing the right thing or looking to do the right thing before you take any action, right? You can think about it like, okay, I don't want to create any bad karma. I want to do the right thing. So sometimes when justice comes up in a reading, it could be a call to do that. Like if you see it next to judgment, or maybe if you see justice next to the Six of Pentacles, what it's doing is it's saying, keep those scales balanced, right? There are definitely minor arcana, there are cards in the minor arcana that have scales. And it's kind of like saying, justice doesn't have to be a past thing. It doesn't have to be that you're, being judged for things you've already done. It can also be something in the future that you can balance before you even take action. Basically, do the right thing, do the right thing, or be mindful, be ethical in your actions. If you know that this, if you're thinking about taking some kind of action and you think that it might not be fair to someone, you might see the justice card. Now, one other thing that it can rule is it definitely rules equilibrium and fairness. It can be neutrality too. Sometimes maybe if if you see a card that talks about conflict or talks about a third party situation, in that circumstance you might be a third party impartial judge, right? Maybe you have two friends that are having a fight and you come in and you act as the person who's gonna, that's gonna have the clear vision in the situation and give some perspective. Now, of course, it definitely, justice rules Libra, therefore it rules the legal system. It can rule dealings with the law or litigation. It can deal with settlements, or it could also, usually it means feeling like as if you are due something. Like, say for instance, if you, and it doesn't have to necessarily be legal, but, maybe you're in an argument with your neighbor and you'd really like an apology, or maybe, in an argument with a family member and you feel like you want an apology, or you at least want the scale to be balanced, right? You want to find justice, right? You want to have a balanced outcome to that situation. Again, it usually turns up when you feel like you haven't been treated fairly, or that there's fairness coming, that there's fairness that needs to be taken in the situation. Now, the other things that it can be is, again, it can mean contracts or binding agreements. A lot of times when you see a justice card next to a love card, sometimes that can be marriages, either, legal, bindings. Maybe you have, maybe there's some kind of monies that were shared. If you see it next to pentacles or cups, you might think, okay, maybe someone's getting a divorce and they have to liquidate assets, or maybe someone just got married and they just purchased a house together. Sometimes justice comes up in that way. Now, the third card that I got was from a deck that I just introduced you to yesterday. The deck's been around since the 90s, and unfortunately it's a vintage deck, so it's very hard to find. You wouldn't find it, it's not like on Amazon or anything. But what it is it's the Jane Austen Tarot. And if you get a chance, yesterday was Jane Austen's birthday, and I did a special reading here on the channel if you get a chance. It's a love reading, so if you want to check it out. But I really love the Justice card in this deck, because what it is that there's a scene in Pride and Prejudice, both in the book and in the movie, whichever you prefer. And it's where, again, Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy have this really kind of bumpy courtship at first. They don't really understand each other. He comes across as very aloof and a little bit, and it's funny, through the course of their initial introduction, he doesn't really treat her right in the beginning. And then it comes to a point where she accuses him. She said, look, I see you do this and I see you do this. You seem like you do not seem like a good person. And so what Mr. Darcy does is he writes a letter. He writes a letter and he says, look, you got some of the facts right and you got some of the facts wrong. Yeah, I did do a few of these things, but I'm not guilty of all of the things that you accuse me of. So it's interesting. I really thought this was a wonderful representation of justice, because what it is it's kind of like,
not to sound funny, I always think of the song, I shot the sheriff, but I didn't shoot the deputy. And I don't condone gun violence, but you know, it's a vintage song, but if you ever get a chance to hear it, and it's basically saying, yeah, you know, there are things I've done, you know, I'm not an angel. There's things I've done, but I did do this one thing, but I didn't do this other thing. You can't just, you know, lump everything on me as if, you know, I'm the total villain, right? And I also see that with justice when it comes up, and that's kind of a new interpretation that I have when I see that card, is that justice, if you've ever been to traffic court, if you've ever had jury duty, when you sit there and what you do is you impartially listen to all the facts, right? You listen to all the facts. And that is another representation of justice, is hearing all the facts. Now, that's definitely something like if you see justice next to the Two of Swords, or you see it next to the Page of Swords, or that could really mean, and the fact that this is a quill, and in this deck, quills are swords. So it means truth. It means gathering the facts, hearing the truth, and weighing the facts. Like, again, if you've ever been to traffic court where you sit and you say, yeah, I did run the stop sign, but there was a reason, I didn't see it, it was behind a tree limb, you know, whatever excuse you make to get out of traffic court. But it's like that. Justice is about sitting in front of the judge and really being responsible for what you did and what you didn't do. Now, it's interesting, and being a Libra person, if anytime you see justice next to wands, it usually means that you're getting a little bit kind of on your high horse about it. And that's funny, I'm very guilty of that. Again, being a Libra sun sign, I have a lot of water in my chart too, but it's funny, being a Libra sun sign, I really do, you've ever heard of the expression, check yourself before you wreck yourself? I've done that. I do that a lot. I check myself. I'm very self-analyzing. And so I do this where before I go into something, I think, okay, will this action affect anybody? Will this action hurt anybody? Will this action, you know, will this cause some kind of impact to more than myself? So a lot of times I do think that I handle things pretty well. But again, having water in my chart and having some powerful water in my chart that squares my sun, there are times I get moody, and there are times that, and what happens is there are times that I think I know the law. Like, okay, well, but I did A, B, C, D, and that's fair. And sometimes you get a little on the narrow about what is truth, because when you think about it, okay, what is truth? Truth can be seen through the filter, through the perception of emotion. And the filter of emotion is very persuasive. It can make you think, oh gosh, you know, well, what I'm due is this, you know, is this. But you feel like you're due that. That might not really be the truth. That just might be what you think is the truth. And that is another thing about justice, is that when you see this, it is a person, right? It's a person. But look how immobile they are. Look how straight they are. Look how straight that sword is being held, and those scales are perfectly balanced. It's kind of like sitting in front of Judge Judy, right? You know, it's kind of like it's sitting in front of the judge. And what it is that you might go in there, you might go into the courtroom with what you think is a solid open and shut case. And the one thing about justice is it might open your eyes to a few things that you missed. So usually, you know, it's funny, when I see the justice card, I get it, sometimes it evokes a little bit of fear, just a small little corner of fear, because if you haven't been on the level, you might be a little bit more afraid of the justice card. If you've been like me, where you feel like you're on the level, the justice card might show you something, might be like, okay, you think you know it, you think you know the law. It's funny, there's a Shirley Temple movie, I think it's called The Secret Garden, I forget, where she has this dream. She has this dream, and in it, two of her teachers are these lovers that are in the dream sequence. I'll try to remember the name, I'll put it on the video. But And there's this woman who's accusing them of something, and it's all in song, and she's like, I know what I saw, I know the law, you know, and it was a cute little scene. It was about a stolen kiss. You know, it's like someone stole a kiss. And she goes, I know the law, I know the law, I know what I saw. And she's all rhyming. And then, you know, the king is making an evaluation as to whether or not it was a stolen kiss or whether or not it was freely given. And I always just think of that rhyme. That rhyme goes in my head. I know what I saw it, I saw, I know the law. And that's the thing with justice. If you go in there ranting and raving like, I know the law, I know what I did, you might be shown something that you don't know at all. So that is the one area where you might get a little scared of the justice card, but not in a bad way. It will always balance it out. And that's the other thing that's comforting about it, is that when you sit in front of the judge, justice will be served. Wherever you were not 100% on the level, you'll get called out on it. Wherever someone else was not 100% on the level, they'll get called out on it, you know, hopefully. You know, again, you know, life isn't always fair, but that's also where it's comforting when the justice card comes out, because life is not always fair, but when you see the justice card, you might actually get some of that, you might get some of that divine, you know, balance. Now, if you go ahead and look at the tarot card in reverse, it definitely, the first thing that springs to mind is injustice, right? You might feel like someone got away with something, or actually we just did the weekly readings, and I got a little concerned over the weekend because in just about all three piles, the Seven of Swords came out, which is what we call, you know, the sneak away card, the guy who's getting away with something. And I kept thinking, God, as the Seven of Swords came out, I kept thinking, oh gosh, are we going to get a justice card after this, you know? Are we going to get that fairness to say, okay, the Seven of Swords, he's not going to get away with this, the judge has been called in, right? But we didn't get any justice cards, but I'm definitely hoping if you watched that reading and you felt like it pertained to you, I hope you're getting a chance to watch this one too, because go ahead and pick a deck. Maybe we'll see how justice is handling that Seven of Swords. And that Seven of Swords could be you, it could be another person, but basically, you know, when you see the justice in reverse and cards like the Seven of Swords, that's when you really feel like, gosh, something, you know, something's unfair. Someone's gotten, you know, maybe you know, someone did something and they seem to get away with it, or, you know, something's happening and you just feel like, also, you know, justice in reverse can also be the long arm of the law. Like, you know how sometimes, you know, some kind of unfairness will occur and you just feel like you have to wait forever. Like maybe your case is going to court and it's delayed 6 months, and you know that can be justice in reverse, because gosh, you know, can't we just get this on the road? I have to wait. And you know, if you see that, you know, if you see justice in reverse next to Pentacles, it can mean that it's costing you money. You know, your court case is tied up. The other thing is, it can mean, you know, and again, that's delayed justice. It can be, a lot of times it can be a lack of commitment. And that in that sense, it just feels like justice, like you're not being given your due, right? Maybe you've invested a lot in a relationship and the person is just non-committal, or, you know, evading you, or, you know, just, you know, maybe if you see the Two of Pentacles, maybe they're just, you know, kind of wishy-washy and really not, and again, it's about equal treatment, right? You know, if you see justice in reverse and somebody is just not doing their part, right? You're giving 50%, but they're not meeting you halfway. That would be the justice in reverse. Another one can be that just feeling, it can be, you know, justice in reverse can be false accusations. Again, I would say that if you saw a card like this in reverse, you know, this would kind of mean like you're being accused of something and you don't have the voice to dispute it, right? You're not given the chance to speak your piece and say, yeah, you know, I did this, but I didn't do that. That's so, you know, being accused of something. Sometimes it can be the wrong decision. Sometimes, you know, and again, that might not be intentional, but it could just be that you were trying to take the seat of the judge, and you just made the wrong call. Maybe you didn't have all the information, or it was a Mercury retrograde, you know. It can be you could also see justice in reverse if you feel like it was an unjust outcome. Like maybe you went to court for something and then, you know, the case didn't rule in your favor and you just felt like that was unfair. It can be bias or bigotry. It can really be conflict and abuse as well. Again, you know, being treated fairly. If you see justice in reverse and like a sword, like a 5 of Swords or something like that, that can be a lot of mind games or gaslighting. Sometimes it could be somebody who is not making a decision too. So a lot of times it can be someone who's on the fence, you know, someone who needs to make a decision and can't. If you saw it with like the 2 of Swords or the 2 of Pentacles. You could also see, you know, upside down justice, like if you're, you know, sometimes you can see it in a financial way, like with the 2 of Pentacles, like, you know, if you see justice in reverse, it could be that, you know, maybe you're deciding where to put your money, like maybe you need to repair your car, but, you know, that new Coach bag went on sale and, you know, again, you're making the wrong decision. You really should be putting the money towards what, you know, important things, but you might be squandering it, and that could be showing up as justice in reverse. Sometimes it can be overconfidence. It can be someone that you feel is abusing the legal system, or you could feel like it's somebody in authority, someone who makes these decisions, and they're abusing their power. So definitely if you saw justice in reverse next to like emperor, oh my gosh, that would be kind of a, you know, scary. In that same vein, it can be a lot of red tape. Maybe you just feel like you're trying to get something done either with insurance or legally, and it's just taking forever and you're being put through a million, you know, hoops. Sometimes it can be on a small scale too, like maybe you're just trying to get a lien release for your car and it's just been like pulling teeth. It's, you know, taking a pint of blood, you know, and long lines, and, you know, people are just putting you all through all sorts of unnecessary paperwork. Sometimes it can mean laziness, or it can mean, sometimes it can be a little bit of laziness in the sense that it's peace at all costs. And definitely being a Libra, it's almost like the negative manifestation of the Libra sun, or, and that definitely is true. There are some Libras, I mean, you know, it's funny, Libras get the reputation of being lazy, but really it's because what it is that we are the peacekeepers, and it's because we've known chaos. But what you'll see is that it's very much proven that most of the generals that you see in the army are either Aries or Libra. And the reason that they're Libra is because they know how to fight. They know strategy. They know what's fair. They know how to keep. But what you'll see is that if you see negative manifestation of Libra or justice in reverse, what it usually is peace at any cost. And honestly, I view that, or the way I define that, being a sun sign, and I can say it, I'm a sun sign Libra, is that I'm not doing my job. It's not even so much laziness, it's just a lot of times Libras don't like conflict, and what happens is you need to make a judgment call. That judgment call is probably not going to go over well with people, but instead of fighting the fight and telling people that they need to just suck it up and deal with the decision, you don't make any decision at all, and it puts everybody at an impasse. Either that, or you make a wrong decision even though you know it's wrong, just in order to keep the peace. And that's definitely not, you know, I almost cringe a little bit, because as a Libra, that's our job here, is that, you know, yeah, we are the peacekeepers, and sometimes we get a little people pleasing with that, but definitely if you've ever seen and you see a lot of Libras in politics too, if you've ever seen a Libra in their prime, when they're making the call and they're doing it, we also get the nickname, you know, the iron hand in a velvet glove. Sometimes you have to make that judgment call, and if you choose not to, or if you choose to kind of waffle in the name of, you know, keeping everyone happy, if you don't fight the fight, you know, because you are able to smooth it over. Once you make that decision, Libras have the uncanny ability. But again, if you see justice in reverse, it might be that, you know, the wrong decision is being pushed through for the wrong reasons. Sometimes you can see it in kind of domestic things, like it can mean the abuse of power in like a police way. It's funny, I wanted to touch on this. I do daily readings just for myself each day, and last night, first off, I kept getting the star, and the dice that I threw looks like a star, but what I thought was so neat is that it also looks like a badge, right? If you've ever seen the movie Practical Magic, there's this young witch, and what she does is she conjures up her perfect mate, and it turns out that he's a sheriff, and she draws a star with 6 points, and it turns out to be the metal badge that he wears. And I just thought, gosh, I thought of justice when I thought of that, and I was like, oh gosh, you know, I'm doing justice tomorrow. It's so cool that I got that. But the other side of that is that it can mean, when it's in reverse, it can be things like abuse of power, like it can be police brutality. It can also be, you know, just cruel, and it can be cruel punishment, right? You know, it can be some of the things that you see, you know, that are the kind of injustice. It can also just mean that it can mean someone who refuses to admit that they're wrong. That's the other thing too, you know, and that would definitely probably show in this card too. Maybe someone really was wrong and they just won't pick up the quill to write the letter and say, you know, hey, I'm sorry. So that is justice. And just one other thing, it is card, again, it's card number 11, and what it is that in the tarot, the first card is a 0. It's not really a number, but so when you get to justice, it's card number 11. And the other thing that's beautiful about that number is that 11 is usually seen as kind of a twin flame, but it also, the reason that it's considered a twin flame is because it's like the two mirrors. It's two persons mirroring each other, but it can also mean the two persons in balance, the two halves of one soul. So I just always thought that was neat too, because you also have the pillars in the justice card, and the two, you have, you know, it looks like one line is going up with the sword and then one line going down with the scales. So. And the two scales themselves too, they look like they're two parallels. But so guys, that is justice. It is, I have to admit, it is a fun card. It's a balance card. It can you know, it can invoke fear and can bring comfort, but definitely you feel like justice is served when you see it, and that's the most wonderful thing about that card. So guys, so that was the description, and I thank you for sharing with me. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and do a quick description of the decks. The first deck will always be the Rider-Waite Smith Tarot, and I use the A.G. Mueller production of that. So that is deck number 1. The stone that I pair with it is a sunstone. Now the second deck is the White Sage Tarot. And this deck is really cute. All of the character court cards are animals, and they got coffee cups in it too. And paired with it, I have my double pearl. I hope you can see it. So that's kind of 2 sides. I didn't even realize that. 2 sides, double pearl. And then the last deck, again, you saw this yesterday with the Jane Austen reading. If you get a chance, if you want to see a good love reading, check that one out. It was Jane Austen's birthday, but this is the Jane Austen Tarot, and paired with it I put my opal, which is a Libra birthstone, and again I am a Libra. The lighting doesn't do it justice. It glitters like a million pretty colors. Now, to clarify the reading, I am going to do your Soul's Journey cards by James DeBraw, and the Wisdom of the Oracle cards by Colette Baron-Reid. I'll go ahead and freeze frame. I do ask that you please choose the deck from your intuition, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, we're back. So with the first deck, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and see with the first deck, how does the Justice card manifest in your life? So, ooh. Thank you. Well, they're just coming out today. Thank you. Deck number 1, how does justice manifest? Thank you. How does justice manifest in deck number 1's life? Please give us guidance. Okay, you see this card is sticking out. Oh gosh, guys. And this one is also kind of poking me in the thumb. So, all right, guys, so deck number 1. Wow, you got some powerful cards. You got some Major Arcana, and definitely. And it's funny, not funny, haha, but when I was pulling the deck open, just to look at the cards, I saw the Death card under Your Soul's Journey. You didn't get that in the pull, but there's a regeneration theme here that we'll get to in just a second. But the way that justice manifests in your life right now is you're definitely finishing up a cycle. What's happening is in the beginning you got the World card, which is an ending and a new beginning, and you got the 8 of Cups, which is the kind of walking away card. Now again, this doesn't have to be walking away permanently, but basically it's just saying that it's really saying that recently, or in your recent past, there were a lot of things that you had to walk away from. And definitely it being the description of justice, I really get the feeling like you weren't being treated fairly. You weren't being treated fairly, or you weren't getting your fair due. I get this feeling as if you were really giving to a situation, and it just wasn't giving back. And what it is it's telling me that the World is the last card of the Major Arcana, and it represents wrapping up of a cycle. It means that you are coming to the conclusion of this lesson or of this situation. And because you walked away, you did the right thing. By walking away, you were serving justice. Justice was served by you walking away from whatever was not serving you. And by walking away, you are completing that cycle. You are bringing to a close. And again, as we're coming right up on the end of a decade. And you know, as we go into 2020, I just really feel like you've got, you know, and the thing about this is, look at the red of the cloak. You see the red and the cloak of the Justice card, and the red and the cloak of the person walking away. You're walking away towards your justice, right? And it's a little scary, because here, you know, he doesn't see where he's going to, right? You might have walked away, and cups are emotions, so I really think that this might have been a relationship or an emotional situation, and it was something that you had a lot invested in. Like you put a lot of emotion into something, and you had to walk away because it wasn't giving back to you. It wasn't treating you fairly. Now, the other thing I always noticed about the 8 of Cups card too is that when you look at the bottom row, there's 5 cups, and the 5 of Cups is the mourning over of something. And then when you look at it, there's 2 cups here, and then there looks like there is this big gap and 1 cup over there, right? So it's almost like 1 cup of emotion is being separated from a couple, and then you have 5 cups of mourning underneath. So that doesn't necessarily have to be your situation, but all it means is that you've been through enough, right? You've been through enough. It looks like you've been part of 2 cups, and then you've gone towards a cup that is your own, 1 cup that is your self-esteem, and you've had a lot of tears over it. You've put enough into this situation. You've invested in it, and at this point, you've just been through enough that you need to seek your justice. You need to walk away. Now, as you walk away, this is what you're going towards, and this is right underneath justice. These 2 cards are underneath justice. And so that means that it's the root of it, the root of this justice that's coming to you. And you got the Empress, and you got the 9 of Cups. And the 9 of Cups is that boon card. It is that, here you go, you've earned this card. This is the reward card. Look how happy he is. And look at that. That's 1 more cup than what you walked away from, right? It's 1 more cup than what you walked away from. And there's the Empress. So what this is telling me is that whatever situation was not treating you right, and it was scary to walk away because you didn't know what you were walking towards. But what you are walking towards is you're walking towards the Empress. And what that means is that this is what you are going to become. You're going to become the Queen of Queens. You're going to become that woman who is all nurturing, who very, very big heart. You've got, this is what you are capable of being. So maybe you were in a situation that just wasn't giving, maybe like for instance, it was a relationship that you weren't getting any commitment out of, or, someone was just, kept stringing you along and was not giving you what you were giving them. What this is telling me is that as you walk away, this is what you're going towards. You're going to become that mother. You're going to become that wife. You're going to become that ruler. You're going to run a household. You're going to have everything that you want. And it's because you had the bravery to walk away and say, I deserve better. And when you walk towards what you are due, and again, he's wearing red. The the judge is wearing red. When you went towards this, it's saying that you are closing out a cycle that you've learned your lessons, you've done what you needed to do, you did right by yourself, and you're going to get the boons. Now, as you move forward, you got the Page of Cups. Now, what this is the Page of Cups is the learner. It's like that small beginning to something. So what this is really telling me is that you are moving towards kind of a new cycle. You're concluding one cycle and you're starting something new, because you see the Empress is kind of the apex. She's the maximum of all queens, right? And then you go back to a page, which is a Page of Cups or the Page of Emotion. I think you are transitioning from one stage of life to another. And as you go into this new stage of life, it's going to feel it's going to feel new. It's going to feel a little unfamiliar, but it's going to be exciting. It's going to be something that you're going to enjoy doing, but you're going to feel like it's new, right? It's new. And it's all because, you just got to know, one thing that you have to remember is that the Empress is your birthright. The Empress is what you were meant to be. The Empress is who you are. And if you remember that and do not let anybody treat you any less than that, you will always get it. You will get what you want. You'll get what you want. Now, the Soul's Journey card that you got was service. And I thought this was really beautiful. It says, I feel good when I help others. And definitely, I'm seeing a lot of this. I mean, with the Page of Cups and the Empress is very nurturing. She takes care of others. And when you look at it, honestly, a lot of the symbols, like the way her crown is shaped and the gold colors, and if you even look at the flowers, it looks very similar, right? And she is a ruler of nature, and you see a lot of green in this card. So I really do think that you're a nurturing person. You're someone who takes care of others in that almost nurturing, mother-like way. Now, the advice that you got is you got regeneration, which is one of my favorite cards in this oracle deck, and you got blessed. And look at that, she's also wearing a crown, right? She looks like an empress. And so what that's telling me is, again, regeneration, the closing of one cycle. Again, this is the maximum. This is the apex, and then the Page of Cups is a beginner. So I think you're closing out one cycle and you're beginning a new one, and you're going to feel regenerated from this. You're going to feel like you're becoming something new. And it's definitely, you've been very brave, and that's what's going to get you your justice. That's what's going to bring you what you are due to have. The other thing is, with the blessings card, is I read this kind of twofold. I first see it as, don't be afraid to receive. Like here, again, a minute ago you were walking away from what looked like empty cups. And then in the future you have this new beginning. You have this new cup that has a fish poking out of it. Like there's definitely water in that cup, right? So what that just kind of tells me is that when I see the blessed card, it sometimes reminds us that don't be afraid to receive. Sometimes we think that we don't deserve something, or, you know, half the reason that you got prevented from stepping into your Empress powers is that self-limiting belief that we don't deserve to have what we want. So when I see the blessed card and I see regeneration, I think it's just reminding you, you are meant to be that Empress. You can see the crown looks similar too, right? You're meant to be that Empress. It is okay to step into that power. That's who you're meant to be. So go ahead, and you might have had some desolate times. You might have, again, you know, it looks like lava, and from that lava, that's really magical. And look, you see kind of moonbeams coming from the blessed. You see how from her hand, she's got this like stream of what looks like pixie dust. And then you see these pixie dust. It's almost like she's above, sprinkling this down on the tree, if you can see that. So I think it's telling you, don't be afraid to receive. You're meant to be, you're meant to transform into this beautiful Empress energy. And it might feel a little foreign at first. It might feel a little novice at first. The other way that I read the blessed card is I also read it as a sign of don't forget to be grateful, which I don't think that you would, but just like it says with service, is that when you're grateful for what you have, no matter how small, the universe sends you more. I also think it's a way of saying pay it forward too, you know. As you are blessed, don't be afraid to bless other people. But again, I don't think that's a problem, because again, the Empress is a very nurturing energy. She naturally cares for others. But I think it's just telling you, you know, be grateful for what you have, and don't be afraid to receive more, because you definitely deserve it. And you can see it with the Nine of Cups too, right? That definitely plays into the blessings too, you know, because the Nine of Cups is the, you know, the here you go, you got what you wanted. All right, so that's deck number 1. That's a really beautiful read, guys. I always enjoy the How to Tarot. Okay, go ahead and put our sunstone there. All right, so deck number 2, you chose the White Sage Tarot. Go ahead. And how does justice manifest in your life? Oh, that's way too many cards, but thank you. Deck number 2, how does justice manifest? I am making note of the, ooh. How does justice manifest in? Gosh, that's the second time we've gotten the Eight of Cups. Got the Eight of Cups last deck. I'm going to read that as just kind of an additional card. Can you see okay? All right, so deck number 2, how does justice manifest in their life? Oh, this is a piece of sea glass as well. I like to use it on my Wisdom of Oracle cards. It just seems to go really well. Okay, so deck number 2, how does just going to grab the book real quick. It'll just be 1 second. Let's see if I can reach it without. Okay. I normally don't read from the book, but this particular meaning I want to. All right, guys, so justice. How does justice manifest in your life? So definitely, right now, I'm getting a little bit. Definitely getting a little bit of a family or a home relationship vibe from this. It could be a little bit of work in there too. But you got the Emperor. And the Emperor, and the last deck we got the Empress. So the Emperor is the king of the kingdom. He's the ruler of kings. He's the apex of all masculinity. He's the patriarch. And what this tells me is that with justice, it's like it is almost as if this could either be a male who's in your life, or it could represent you. And again, you could be a female watching this video and manifesting as the Emperor. But basically, you've seen that sign that says the buck stops here. That's basically the Emperor kind of energy. The Emperor is the ultimate leader. He calls the shots. He has a very strong element of control. Not when he's upright, it's control in a good way, but basically he's kind of the leader of his family. If he's a CEO, he's a leader at work. But basically, he has a little bit of a justice vibe to him, just because he makes the decisions, right? He's usually the breadwinner. He's the person who is the head of his household, the head of his family. So he usually decides what goes and what doesn't. And here I'm just getting a real vibe as if the Emperor's got to be the person who makes the judgment calls in his life. It's a very strong presence. It's a major arcana, and it's kind of anchoring this reading. So basically, I think what's happening right now is that I feel like I'm really getting the vibe as if the Emperor is a separate person, and it could be a family member, but it's definitely it's a male patriarch that you report to or you look up to. It could be a boss, but definitely there's some kind of legal or there's some kind of judgment call that needs to be made in regards to this person. And what's happening is you're waiting right now. It's almost like the jury is still out. The three of wands, and in this deck, this is what we call a pip deck. It doesn't have images for the minors, but the three of wands is about is typically waiting for some kind of action to happen. Decisions are being made, or a decision has been made. And what's happening is we're waiting for the results of that decision to come through. And it's definitely involving this Emperor character. So the other thing about this deck is that you'll see ribbons throughout, and what it is it's a chakra theme. And on the Three of Wands, you have a blue ribbon, which is the throat chakra. So there's a lot of deliberations going on right now. There's something, and the fact that this is the heart weighing with the feather, I have a feeling that there's some kind of deliberation, there's some kind of judgment call that's going to be made either about a career or some kind of family involvement that involves this very powerful masculine figure, and you're waiting for the results of that. I'm really getting the vibe that you were told that something was going to happen, like maybe you were told that you would get a certain position, or maybe you were told, okay, we're going to put the mortgage in your name, something like that. And it was, we're going to buy this car and it's going to be your responsibility. Something like that has been, given by this person, and you are right now in present, you are talking about it, like you're discussing it, you're going back to this person and saying, hey, we said that I was going to get this, when is that going to come? And right now you're kind of waiting. The decision's already been made and you've been promised this, but you haven't actually seen it manifest, and you're waiting for it to manifest. Now, what's happening in the future? So that's where you are right now. You're kind of in a little bit of limbo, and the fact that it's under the scales, it's almost like you're waiting. You're getting weighed up right now. It's like you're weighing the consequences of this agreement, and it definitely feels like some kind of weighty agreement. Like you've been promised something and you haven't quite seen it yet. Or maybe you're stepping into a new role and you haven't really taken on the role yet, but you've been promised it and you're about to. And right now there's a lot of talking, but not an actual, you haven't officially moved forward yet. Now the future, or where you're heading, you got, it's interesting. These two are right underneath each other. And first off, the ribbon in this card is the green one, which is the heart chakra. And you got the Seven of Cups. Now, the Seven of Cups is the, it can be the overwhelmed card, but basically you have a lot of options moving forward. You have kind of a choice of several different paths. It's almost like when you get that promotion at work and you can kind of say, okay, now do I want to move? Do I want to buy that new car? Do I want to get married? It's kind of like that. The Seven of Cups is like, woo, you know, now that I've got this, I've got this alliance with this emperor. I've got this judgment coming. I've got this legal, you know, work thing that I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for those ships to come in. It's about to come in. We've been talking about this. I've been told this is going to happen. As soon as that does come in, as soon as that happens, what should I do? Decisions. Should I go this way? Should I go that way? And then the other thing is, this could also pertain to this if it is kind of like a job position, and if they're deciding what duties you do, you could be deciding, okay, is that really what I want to do? Or, you know, given there's some kind of benefit here that's fueling your ability to kind of choose one of several different paths, or you're deciding how to apply these new resources to where you want to go in life. And right now the jury's out. Again, I'm getting a lot of jury out. The scales are being weighed right now as we speak. It's saying, is your heart heavier than the feather, right? So it's, in the introduction we talked about how in Egyptian mythology, you know, when before a person goes into the underworld, your heart is weighed against a feather, and it's kind of a determination of the sins that you've done in life. It's kind of saying, are the weights of your soul heavier than a feather? If your heart is lighter than a feather, then you are clear to go into the afterlife. You've lived an honest, good life. So here, I am getting that vibe. That mythology is really speaking to me in this card. And it's almost as if you're moving forward in your life, and you're almost deciding how to move forward in an honest way. It's almost like, okay, now that I have this advancement, where do I go? And where you go is the path you choose is going to lean a lot on your ethics, is what I'm feeling. It's almost like you're deciding, okay, like just as the scenario, say, you know, you had family members really help you out financially, and then all of a sudden you're doing really well at work and you make more money. You're deciding, okay, should my first step be to pay them back? Should my first step be to get a new house? It can also be making amends to people that you haven't been balanced with. Again, you're in that balancing of saying, okay, you know, now that I'm waiting for my ships to come in, how do I want to move forward? What would be the most honest and just? Because remember, we also said in the intro, justice can be deciding what you're going to do before you do it. You're saying, okay, what would be the fair action? What would not affect anybody? Or it can also be what will give somebody fairness. Maybe I wasn't fair to someone in the past. How can I be fair to them moving forward? And what tells me that you're thinking of that in that kind of justice way is the fact that you got the Four of Wands. And the Four of Wands is that celebration card. It's that milestone card. It is a twin flame card as well. It could pertain to a relationship. But what it means is that you want to get to that next level of life. Your goal is to get to that next level of life, that really celebratory one. The one, you know, the Four of Wands is pertained as the marriage card because that's the best illustration of a milestone. It's like when you've met that person that you're meant to be with, and then you propose, you get married, your life is changing, and that is one of the major milestones that all people go through. When you graduate college, when you get married, when you have kids, it's like, you know, it's like those little lines in the timeline of your life that are really important and really celebrating. And what I'm seeing is that you're headed that direction, but you have a lot of choices. You're thinking, okay, what is the next milestone I want? That's the vibe I'm getting. What's the next milestone? Should the next milestone be buying my own house? Should the next milestone be, you know, proposing to my long-term boyfriend or girlfriend? You know, is it, you know, it could also be making amends for anything that wasn't on the level in the past and then moving forward. But you have a lot of decisions right now, and that's where justice is playing in. You have a lot of choices to make, and you're trying to decide what path you're going to go on that's going to make you happy, but is also going to be honest and ethical and truthful. Now, the only thing is that the addendum card that I got was, you got the Eight of Cups. Eight of Cups came out last deck too. It kind of came out in the weekly energy reading too, if you were deck 2, I think. The Anna K Tarot. But Eight of Cups is walking away from something. The Eight of Cups can be that, you know, something that you invested in. But what I'm kind of feeling is that the fact that Seven of Cups and then goes to Eight of Cups, I think you're really trying to do this in a fair way. And again, that's justice. You're trying to do this in a fair way. If there is a path that you're going to decide what path you're going to go down, and whatever path you choose, you're anticipating that it's going to take you to that next victory, that next milestone, the things that will make you happy in life. But by choosing one of those cups, by choosing one of those paths, you're going to inevitably not choose another one of those cups. So that might mean walking away from either another goal, or walking away from, it could be walking away from an employer, or walking away from another person. And whatever you're walking away from, you don't want that person or whatever to feel like they were done dirty, is kind of the feeling that I'm getting. Now, the two, and what really reinforces this is your two journey cards is you got peace, which is I am a being of love, and I release all negative energy. And you got freedom. I possess the power of free will to create my own happiness. Oh gosh, guys, I'm glad that I read it that way, because we talked about being happy, right? Freedom, the freedom to choose which cup, and then happiness is, and look at this, the purples in this look like the purples that are tying the four wands together, right? It looks like the same lavender. Look at that. Oh my goodness. And then the other one is peace. And look, the peace really, all this blue looks like the cup. It looks like the Eight of Cups blue. But basically what you're doing is you're trying to find peace. You're trying to say, okay, and remember, you know, with justice, remember how we said, you know, yeah, there's things I did that weren't on the level, but there are things that I did that were fair. I think in this, you're just trying to find peace. You want the freedom to follow your happiness. You want the freedom to choose the cup that's going to make you happy. And if it does mean walking away from somebody or something, you want it to be fair, and you want peace. It's almost like, if you remember how I talked about Libras, how if it's justice in reverse, you're peacekeeping, it's peace at all cost, which is really not the good manifestation. I think you want the real peace. You want it where if you do have to make a judgment call where you walk away from someone and you choose a different cup, you want that heart to be level with the feather. You want peace. You want to say, look, I made this decision. You're going to have to live with it. Unfortunately, I chose a different cup, but that different cup that I chose will bring me happiness. But I do think that the other thing about the Emperor is that he's very strategic. He's a very heavy thinker. And I do think that if he's the judge, or if this is you and you're in that position of deciding, right now the jury is still out. You haven't decided which cup is going to bring you that happiness. And honestly, you're probably a little afraid. You're a little afraid of choosing the wrong one, because you just want the Four of Wands. You just need to know which cup that leads to that, right? And that's justice, that's weighing. But I think what happens is if you do end up choosing one cup over another, you don't want any bad blood with anybody or anything, and again, it could be an employer, it could be a family member. You don't want to leave anybody in straits just because you chose something else. You want peace and you want freedom. You want the freedom to go where you will make you happy, and you want the peace of knowing you did the right thing without any bad blood. Now, the oracle card that you got is a really beautiful one. It's called Treasure Island, and I did want to read from the book just because the description does it far more justice than I could. And real quick, it's in this oracle deck. If you care about numerology, it's number 9. It says, "The law of attraction brings dreams into fruition, the results of positive thinking made manifest, abundance appearing as if from nowhere, financial gains and the sharing of good fortune." So real quick, the oracle's message: you've worked hard and acted upon your unwavering belief in abundance, and suddenly, in the midst of it all, you hit the jackpot. You have uncovered the map to buried treasure and tapped the unlimited potential within you. What you must hone now is your ability to recognize when X marks the spot, because some of these golden opportunities may be obvious, but others are not so readily apparent. Trust your intuition to light your way now as you enter this truly prosperous phase, where all the long, hard work navigating your inner life is now paying off externally. In all aspects of your life at this time, you have good fortune. Don't forget to enjoy it and share it with others, as treasure shared multiplies like magic. So what I got from that, guys, is that definitely it says X marks the spot, right? And it says you have prosperity. I think you've been, and there's a lot of greens in this, a lot of greens and blues. There's so many greens and blues in this card, guys. So what it's telling you is, I think you are the emperor. I think you've been working really hard. And the 3 of Wands, the fact that it's 3, it means that your work is manifesting, and it goes from the 3 to the 4, right? So you've earned this happiness. You've earned it, and it's going to come to you. But you do have to decide. Again, you know how it said some places it's fairly obvious where X marks the spot, and other places it's not so obvious. I think you do want to use discernment in picking which cup, because I would definitely Google the 7 of Cups in Rider-Waite-Smith so you can kind of see, but it is definitely, it's like you have a lot of choices, and not all of the choices are very obvious. And I thought that was interesting that it came up in the oracle that, you know, X doesn't always mark the spot. You might pick a cup that other people might think might not be treasure, but is really treasure to you, and it will bring you the 4. But yeah, that's how justice is manifesting in your life, guys. That was fascinating. That was really interesting. I got a lot out of that. And good luck to you. Now, the How to Tarot always runs a little bit longer. I've had some really long videos this week, but as the week progresses, we're gonna keep them a little bit more concise. But the last deck we have is the Tarot of Jane Austen, and with the opal. Opals and pearls. Ooh, as I knock that over. Sorry, guys. Sorry, deck 2. Opals and pearls, which is my sun and my moon. Opals and pearls. All right, deck number 3. Deck number 3. Ooh. Oh my gosh. Holy Toledo. 7 of Cups, 8 of Cups. The last deck got 7 and 8 of Cups. Knight of Coins, 10 of Quills. Good gravy, guys. I don't know if we have a collective thing going on, or if I'm still getting the energy from the last deck. Okay. Justice, Moment of Truth. Should I keep this as the first part spread? I'm going to keep it as the first part of the spread, guys. We're just going to go with it. We got 4, 4, 4. Oh my gosh. This is going to be a crazy read. All right, please, future. All right. Don't think I'm nuts. I can read them all together. No fear. This seems like a whole tableau, but no fear. Okay. Deck number 3. How does justice manifest in your life? Oh. And what is their guidance? So deck number 3. Oh, thank you. Wow. Oh, wow, guys, this is awesome. I don't know if we still got, I wonder if this deck still is imbued with the energy of the read that we did yesterday, which was the Jane Austen reading, because it's telling me a story. I'm seeing this. It's not going to be too long, but it is a story, you know. Okay, I'm just checking this out real quick. All right. All right, guys. All right, let's get into this. Okay, so the way justice manifests in your life. So in the past, you got the 10 of quills, which is the 10 of swords, which is that really sad 10 swords in the back. And this is actually Mr. Darcy leaving Elizabeth Bennet. Just under it, you have the Knight of Coins, which is the Knight of Pentacles, which is the slowest moving knight in the deck. And honestly, I love this depiction of it because it's Darcy waiting outside deciding, what should I say, what should I do? And he's taking his sweet time, which the Knight of Coins does. And then you got the 8 of Teacups and you got the 7 of Teacups, which is the 8 of Teacups is that walking away from something you've emotionally invested. I'm almost positive that is Eleanor Dashwood, but I'm waiting on my book. I ordered the book. And then we got the 7 of Cups, which is most definitely Emma. I love this depiction of this because it's the choices card and she's got all her men poking out of teacups. I think that's great. And it's so nice. Please don't judge me, Justice card. Don't judge me. I love it when the girl has choice of that many men. I just kind of I'm a single girl. It's kind of exciting to see that. So what I'm seeing in the past is I'm seeing that there was a very painful ending. And again, the fact that this Justice card is Darcy writing that kind of lesson. And again, this doesn't, you don't have to be, you don't have to necessarily be the Elizabeth Bennet in this situation. You could be represented by Darcy, male, if you're male or female. It could be you that was trying to do the explaining, or the person who was trying to defend yourself against the accusations made towards you. But the vibe that I'm getting is, I'm definitely getting more of a feminine vibe for you. As if, and again, the fact that these are the same characters. This is Darcy and this is Elizabeth Bennet. What I'm kind of seeing is, and you can almost see it's like, it almost looks kind of black and white, like it's in the past, right? If this were a movie, this would be the past and this is the present. But basically, I have a feeling that you had a painful, this is definitely relationship related. But I think that you had a very painful, I'm just going to describe it as if you're feminine and you're watching this video. You had a painful fallout with someone. And the reason that you had a painful fallout for someone is that they were taking their sweet time. That this person that was dealing with you was not making you a priority. They were taking their sweet time. You see how in both of these images you're not seeing his face. You're not seeing his face, you're constantly seeing his shoulder, you're seeing his back. And it's like he was just taking too long. You were confused by it, right? Remember how we said she doesn't have all the facts? And in both of these scenes, she has a letter, right? She has a letter, right? And what that's telling you is, it's just like, it's saying, you gotta keep, you feel like it's unfair. You feel like it's unfair when you're not brought into the loop, right? If you're gonna be in a relationship with someone and it's gonna be 50-50, you can't have no communication with someone that you're in a relationship with. You can't have no, if someone's not cooperating with you, and definitely, I'll just say it this way, cooperation does not mean that the person does everything your way. That is not cooperation. But if you're giving 100% of yourself, if you're coming to this relationship equally and you're not getting any communication, you're not getting any, no one's telling you what's going on. He's just kind of standing out front, you know. He's got a plan, clearly, but did you get the memo? You know, were you copied on what this plan was? No. And it's one of those things where, you know, it's understandable if, and again, Mr. Darcy's a little bit of a control character. I do kind of see him as a little bit of an emperor light, where he has a right to keep his thoughts private. He doesn't have to air his business, but if he wants to be in a relationship with this woman, he does have to he has to speak up a little bit. He doesn't have to say his whole plan. He doesn't have to tell Elizabeth Bennet everything that he's thinking as he's waiting, but he has to at least let her know, yes, I am interested in you, or yes, I do want a relationship with you, or there's things that I need to do right now, but I promise you I have not forgotten you. It doesn't take much to just give somebody a little bit of a clue. Either that, or if the other person does have to wait, if there are things that he has to do, at least let her know. Say, look, I've got some big things going on in my life. I can't give you details. Do you want to wait for me or do you not? You almost have to give the other person that option. You can't just keep them in the dark and then expect them to stick around. So what I see is underneath it, you have the Eight of Teacups, which is someone, you know, leaving, someone going away, and she's crying, and she's also got like a book. And then underneath it's the Seven of Cups. So basically I see a situation where, and again in this situation I feel like the Seven of Cups is just saying that everything, the other definition of the Seven of Cups is everything's murky. There's you know, there's no definition. You know, she doesn't know where to go, because she, you know, she might have been interested in him and she might have thought that there was a good prospect in him, but he was not you know, Darcy wasn't telling her anything. So she eventually walked away. She walked away because it was just silence. It was crickets. It was, okay, are you one of these guys? You know, what are we doing here? What's going on? Can I get the memo? You know? And what happened was, you know, she was kind of left, I'm seeing it very linearly because this is the root, you know, root of the situation, dun, dun, dun. And root of the situation is, which way do I go, George? You know, I'm really, and all of these suitors are maybes. It's not like the way that you go from being a maybe to being someone that you could actually think about a relationship is intent, right? All of the great, and you can watch it here on YouTube, there's a lot of great relationship videos that say, if a guy pursues you, if a guy calls you, you know, talks to you, it's progression. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for, progression. What plucks a guy out of a teacup and actually puts him in the chair next to this woman is progression. When a guy calls you, when a guy says, you know, and it doesn't have to be intense love either. It just has to be consistent, and I text you every day, and then I ask you out on to the movies on the weekend. Okay, I ask you out to dinner. I say, hey, Christmas is coming up. Do you want to exchange gifts? You know, and it doesn't have to be big things. It doesn't, but that's what takes you out of the field of possibilities into the real world of going, you know, trotting down that little path of going somewhere. And you see, he's standing at the top of the path and he's not walking it. So what happened was, she doesn't know that he's out front. She's inside thinking, okay, who am I going for? And he's out front, not taking any action or going really slow. So what you did is, you know, you don't want men in teacups. You want a man sitting next to you. So you walked away. Really, I'm not really getting any signs here. And she doesn't know that he's out. She didn't know that he was out front, or that she didn't know what the plan was. And so because she walked away, and because he knew the plan and she didn't, all of a sudden it fell out. There was this big misunderstanding. Well, I walked away because you weren't talking to me. Well, you walked away from me and I don't want you, da da da. So boom, injustice on both sides. Injustice on both sides. Justice for all. Off with their head. Sorry, I'm channeling Alice in Wonderland. Where's that coming from? Now, the middle, or the current situation, and again, root, ... The root of the situation is the Ace of Candlesticks, which is the Ace of Wands, which I am seeing a lot lately. And what it is there seems to be some kind of new action. Something is present now, and I think it is because of this justice. I think Mr. Darcy wants to make this right. He says, okay, that happened. I took my sweet time. I didn't tell you anything. You got frustrated. You walked away from me. Let me tell you, let's hash this out. Let's air this out. Where was I wrong? Where were you wrong? We were both wrong. You know, let's be fair about this. And justice is fairness. So, you know, kind of renewed action. If this person is communicating or trying to communicate to let you know what their plan was and why it failed. But you got Candlestick, and then you got 10 of Coins, and then you got 7 of Quills, which is the 7 of Swords, which is that sneaking away card. And then you got the 8 of Candlesticks. And then you got Justice. So, and I know that's a lot of cards, guys. Basically, this guy, I really do think that your guy, your Mr. Darcy in this scenario, he really wants a new beginning with you. He wants a new beginning with you. And he kind of has it in his head. Again, his plan, part of that plan that you are not aware of, and you see he's wearing the same green coat, right, was like this family home life. Either that, or what I'm kind of seeing is that these are wands. It could be that his family life is what's blocking this, is that there might be things, because the thing is, the 7 of Quills is that sneaking away card. It's in the traditional tarot, it's the person who's sneaking away with the swords. And you got 8 of Candlesticks, which is a lot of action. It's a lot of sudden action. So the vibe I'm almost getting, I get this feeling as if in what's causing this hesitancy, or what's causing this really block in communication, is it seems like he's got some kind of family things going on. And the fact that the 7 of Quills is kind of a more mature woman, it almost looks like a family member. It could be like a grandmother or an aunt or a mom. I really get the vibe like, and again, anytime a card is in between, I get the feeling like in order for him to move full speed ahead, in order for him to not be waiting outside and out front anymore, he's almost got to sneak away. He's got to do some kind of, he's going to have to kind of withdraw himself from some other family situation. And he'd have to come at you really fast, or he wants. I think they want to come at you fast, but it's being blocked, and it would almost be kind of clandestine. He'd have to kind of. It would probably, and again, the fact that this is legal, it might involve some kind of legal. I'm not seeing too many. Well, the 10 of Coins is Pentacles. It could be money that's tied up in a family situation. But there is a renewed, this is new action. This is new action. And the thing is, it's like this is a very happy home scene too. This is almost like what he's envisioning. That's what he wants. But I do get the feeling like in order to get that, it's like he has to skulk away from something, or he has to pull away from something that would make him look like a villain. And he'd have to, like, full speed ahead, you know, go towards you. Which is, I'm kind of getting the vibe that that's what he wants to do. That's kind of what he wants to do. Now, in the future, you got another ace. You got 2 aces. In the present, you got an ace of action. In the future, you got an ace of emotion, which is a really good sign. I really get this feeling like you're going to get a letter that's going to give you your answers, and it's going to be the explanation. I also think that what it might be is it might be him telling you that these actions have already been taken, because this is the present. But in the future, you got the Lady of Coins, which is the Queen of Coins, and you got the Ace of Cups, which is new love. It's new love. It's a beautiful, real strong start to love and a relationship. So I really think, and the fact that this is coins and this is coins, again, and the fact that it was Knight of Coins, these are all coins. I think this person wants you to be the queen in that scene, in that picture. He wants you to be the queen in that happy family picture. He wants to be that person standing next to you. And he wants to turn you into that Queen of Coins. But the only thing that's making me a little nervous is that the Seven of Swords is not, anytime you have set, and at the beginning of this video, remember how I told you, at the beginning of this video, I said in the weekly energies, I kept seeing the Seven of Swords and I was waiting for justice to come out next to it, and it didn't. And here we're talking about justice and the Seven of Swords, the Seven of Quills comes out. Again, the Seven of Swords doesn't necessarily have to be a bad card. There's no bad cards in tarot. You read it with the cards around it. But what I'm seeing is you know, but the only thing is there's caution around the Seven of Quills, just because it's almost kind of like seeing the fox card. It's someone who's a little crafty. It's someone who will sneak away, or it's the problem with the Seven of Swords is that it's someone who's not afraid to take away from one scenario because it serves them, and you know, it's taking from one scenario in order to give to another. And if you want to, and again, one of the themes of justice is doing the right thing before you take action, thinking, okay, is this going to hurt anybody by doing this? And when you're taking swords, you're taking thoughts, it's almost as if you're not being honest about it. You're kind of sneaking away from one scenario and giving the benefits of that one. It's not really saying third party. I don't think anybody's cheating on anyone here. But the Seven of Swords you got to watch, just because, are you being ethical? Are you being ethical? And again, in this Justice card, Darcy was not an angel. He did things that were not on the level, and he was not very nice. He was a little bit of a jerk to Elizabeth Bennet. He was not on the level at first. So it does look like a good spread. It really does tell me, the only thing that I would caution is that if someone does have to leave another scenario, and it could be a family one, it could just be that, you know, he's tied up in things with his family, and in order to come towards you, you know, very fast, the other thing that I kind of get is that this communication that describes this situation is going to come fast. It's going to be like, you haven't heard anything, you thought it was all in shambles, and then boom, you know, well, you know, I'm sorry to leave you hanging, you know, that was not cool of me. I was doing A, B, C, D, and, you know, this was happening with my family. Either that, or this could be a character in his family that is doing that, is someone who is taking him away, or you know, kind of skulking around the situation. But that's kind of a weird thing to say. But yeah, the Seven of Quills. I'm sorry, I'm lamenting, but I'm just trying to think. You know, it would just kind of mean, and the fact that this is action and this is action. I think he wants a new start. There's a family situation here, but that 7 is in between this, so it might be where he has to pull away from something, and he might not be. The important thing with justice is that if you do have to pull away from another situation, that situation is very clear that you are leaving, you know, that he's leaving, and he's on the level about it, so he doesn't create any karma for himself. but the future looks very bright. You have a Queen of Pentacles here, and she's the, you know, with it being Pentacles, she's that person in that happy family scene. She's a really lovely wife too. But I think what's happening is, in the future, this Queen of Pentacles, you know, the only other thing I can think of is that if this is different people, like if you're the Elizabeth Bennet in this situation, this is a slightly different character, the Queen of Pentacles. So it, just one other interpretation, just to put it out there, it might not be your situation, and if it doesn't resonate, don't take it. But it could be that you had this kind of heartbreak with someone, and they were acting very quiet and silent, and they were kind of stringing you along, and you had had enough and you just left, or they ghosted you. And then all of a sudden, you know, you get news probably from them that, you know, they'll, if they're making their karma right, they're telling you about what happened and that they're in a new relationship, and then they, you know, move forward. But the one last interpretation could be that, you know, that it might be the same scenario. You know, you had kind of a breakup, you hear about this person kind of very quickly, you figure out what they were doing in all of that silence, and it was them being very busy with some kind of other third party. And then what it is that with that information, you can balance the scales and, you know, be square and move on to a new love and a new perspective with you, very practical. That's another way you can read it. But either way, the future looks very bright. I mean, the Queen of Cups is the queen in this happy picture, and this is a Ace of Cups. So I think either way, whatever the scenario, you are going to be very happy, and this justice is going to bring you that. It's going to put you in the position where you can have that happy ending, and your new start, that revived love is coming. That revived love is coming. Now, the journey card that you got was doubt. I released the need to know all of the answers. And again, remember I think this is interesting that, you know, we talked about how this card means that, you know, Elizabeth Bennet was in the dark, right? She didn't know what was going on, right? She didn't know, you know, what was happening behind the scenes, but maybe she couldn't know, right? Maybe, you know, because there was some clandestine, there was some hidden things going on, maybe she just wasn't meant to know. But you know, when it comes to doubt, you know, you doubting someone or you doubting yourself, it just says, you know, just release the need to know those answers. And then your advice, your oracle cards, is you got mending, and then you got chop wood. And chop wood is kind of a, well, let me start with mending. I definitely get some mending vibes from this. The fact that we have two aces, and the fact that in this column in the past we have a lot of blurriness, we have a lot of stagnancy. You have two people that are going opposite directions, right? You have one person, you have two people just disconnect. That's what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing total disconnect. Then in the middle, I see very rapid, you know, movement. So mending, I really do think, you know, looking at this, I think either one of you is going to make the effort to bring justice to this situation. You know, if somebody was not told the truth and needed to know what was going on, I think moving forward, in order to mend the situation, that you see two people here and you see them both sewing either end of this line, that's kind of tethering them together. I think moving forward, you know, some type of communication is going to occur, and the advice is go ahead and let's listen to each other, right? Let's, just like in justice, this is how justice is manifesting. Listen to each other, be the impartial judge. If somebody needs to tell you about some stuff that there might have been a good reason why he had to keep things hidden, and there might have been, you know, the other thing is, you know, maybe you let your doubt or your suspicion get the better of you. But either way, on both sides, you just kind of have to air it out and listen to one another and try not to judge too harshly. I know it's justice, but now the other thing we got was chopped wood. Now, chopped wood I kind of read two ways. The official oracle definition is that, that you want to delight in everyday tasks. And one thing about the Queen of Pentacles is she is an everyday type of woman. Like she's someone who works the way she shows love. If you're familiar with the 5 love languages, the Queen of Pentacles would be someone whose love language is acts of service, right? It's someone who takes care of her family by doing things. And chopped wood is about that. It's about saying, you know, chopped wood is about, means that you don't have to have a glamorous life in order to be happy. It's kind of about being content with the everyday mundane things. If you have to do the laundry, if you have to wash the dishes, you know, try to indulge in those little things every day. But the Lenormand, when you look at the, in Lenormand, the broom means sweeping away. It means out with anything that doesn't serve you. So when I see chopped wood, I kind of think of that too. So when I see these two cards together, what it makes me think is, okay, yes, there is some mending in this situation. If this is some type of X situation, it might mean just kind of forgiveness. Because you also see that there's kind of clouds here. They're pink clouds and they're kind of dissipating. There's no angry sky here. And so that kind of means that things are clearing out. We're clearing the air, so to speak. Now, the other thing is chopped wood is really sweeping out. I just kind of think of sweeping away anything that is, you know, the dust and dirt of this situation. You know, as the dust settles, let's sweep it out. It's kind of like really getting over all of this and starting out on a fresh foot. And definitely with justice, if you've ever had that feeling, like if you have been to like traffic court, or if you've had to, you know, if you have been in front of a judge for some type of case, legal case, and when they finally make that verdict, when the judge finally comes out and says, okay, this is what's going to happen, isn't there this great relief? Right? And I'm kind of getting that feeling like the judgment has been made, you know what's going on, you know what happened, and now you can just do the cleanup work, right? You can kind of clean up and get back to your life, and it also is about starting small too. Just, you know, if this has left anybody in a situation, just try to be, again, like the Queen of Pentacles, just try to be, you know, start afresh and be on the level. But I definitely see that you have an Ace of Cups with that, which is a really beautiful new love beginning. So it could be with this person or it could be with someone else, but either way I see your future being really bright with that, and I just think the scales will be balanced and you know, the sun will come out again. All right, guys, so that was your read, and I want to thank everyone. I know these readings go a little bit longer, but that was cool. And of course, I love the Jane Austen cards. Again, if you get a chance, if you want to see a good love reading, you can look at the reading from yesterday, and it was Jane Austen's birthday, and you just pick an item and see your Jane Austen love story. All right, guys, well, I want to thank you, and we definitely have a full week. I have another special post on Thursday, and I'll announce it on that day. On Friday it's the 20th, which is my D20 reading. It's my Dungeons and Dragons tarot reading. If you want to catch that, that'll be first thing Friday morning. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing my weekly energy card reading. So we have a full week ahead of us. It's going to be fun and exciting. And if you are so inclined, if you like the content that you see, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.